Right. After a little bit of technical difficulty, we're finally with it. Apologize. Seems like YouTube Live is kind of a difficult thing to use. It's a little bit counterintuitive. And I always get irritated when other people start live streams and they're all messed up. But clearly, I can understand and forgive them for that, because it is absolutely bizarre the way they have these things set up. Now today, this is the tale of the Loathsome Lady. And this is a presentation of Ambient Glow Radio Live. With your Pajama scholar, Hank McGurk. And I'm going to go ahead and get right into it, because I'm not going to wait for an audience. We're just going to go ahead and jump right into it. And I suppose, to borrow a quote from a movie, Field of Dreams, if it's not a Mandela effect, if you read it, they will come. So, this is from Spells and Bindings. And I have a fairly extensive library on spells and other such things. And I find it, before we get started, to make the note that it's very important for us as a society to curate the fables and the tales and the folklore that had been passed down through the generations. And these tales are very, very old, and they go all the way back to what these concepts that help us really identify and build as a society. And the reason that I have selected this particular reading is because for our society to evolve, we should get back to chivalry. We should get back to honor, integrity, courage. And I haven't read this story in a very, very long time, so I'll be exploring it with you. So you'll see my reactions as I refresh my memory, because it probably has been 8-10 years since I've read this. So, a story from the Chronicles of King Arthur tells, the tale began with a challenge to the king himself. It happened that during a stag hunt, the king left his people to stalk a buck alone. From thicket to thicket he followed the quarry, and at length he flushed it in the midst of a deep and silent glade where heavy trees surrounded him, blocking out sight and sound from his companions. He brought the buck down with a single bow shot. At that moment, a stranger strode out of the shadows of the wood, a knight, fully armored and armed. "Well met, king," said the knight. "This wood is my territory. You have violated it, and your life is forfeit." Unshaken, King Arthur examined the stranger for some moments in silence, and the king said, "How are you styled, knight?" "I am called the son of the summer's day." "Then let me tell you, sir, that you are armed and I am not. If you slay me as I stand, your honor will die. But I will strike a bargain with you. In return for my life, I will grant you what you wish." "Very well, king," said the knight. "Here are my terms, then. You and I shall part now. You shall return here, unarmed and alone, this day 12th, and when you return, you will bring me the answer to a question that I have. What is it that women desire? If you cannot find the answer, then you forfeit your life." And the stranger vanished among the trees without a further word. Arthur set about the business of butchering the stag he had shot, all the while puzzling over the encounter. His life, it seemed, depended on a trivial riddle asked by a being who was certainly a creature of the other world. But he was not yet done with otherworldly folk. When he had finished the work and marked the place for his huntsman, he set out through the wood and was once again accosted. A woman rose, it seemed, out of the ground mist. She was dressed in silk and mounted on a pretty palfrey, but her appearance was so grotesquely ugly that Arthur's heart contracted with pity. Squat as a barrel, she was red of face and lumpy with warts. Crooked teeth protruded over her wide lips, and yellow matter crusted her red-veined eyes. "Lady, good day," said the king. "God prosper you, king," she replied briskly. "Dame Ragnall is my name. I have the answer to the son of Summer's riddle. Only I have it. My word can save your life, and for a price, I will give you that word." "What do you wish?" "That if I ransom you with wisdom, you will give me the knight Gawain for a husband." This was preposterous. Gawain then was the foremost of the king's warriors, unmatched in courage and courtesy, invincible in battle, and gracious at court. He was beloved by his companions. He was no man to mate with a fairy crone. Arthur told the woman this as kindly as he could. Dame Ragnall shrugged her massive shoulders. "Even an owl must have a mate, and Gawain is the one I choose. For when the time of your trial is near, king, I shall come to your court and hear your answer." She turned the little palfrey abruptly, and in a moment she had disappeared. For some months, Arthur said nothing about his bizarre meetings in the woods. As the trial drew near, however, it became clear that he might indeed lose his life to the knight called the Son of Summer. He told his council about the affair. The reaction among them was horrified amusement at the stillness of the riddle and at the thought of Gawain matched to a hag. But Gawain himself silenced them. "I will wed the lady, and so tell her," he said. Nothing could shake him. The laughter of the fellows he ignored. The protests of the king he answered by saying that few marriages were happy ones, and that this marriage was better than the death of the king by magic. The appointed year drew to a close. Dame Ragnall appeared at court as she had promised. She was received with contempt from the courtiers and grave courtesy from Gawain. He did not flinch when she stroked at his sleeve with knotted hands. He escorted her to the king, slowing his long stride to her rolling waddle. When he had left her with Arthur, one of his fellow knights spat and said, "That is a foul creature, Gawain." "You must not speak to me of her that way," said Gawain gently, and indeed, no one of Arthur's people dared to speak ill of Dame Ragnall after that. What she gave the king for the riddle's answer, neither one would say. It was the right one, however. Arthur returned from his meeting with the Son of Summer unharmed. That affair was over. Now the price was paid. Into Arthur's great hall at Carlisle, Sir Gawain led Dame Ragnall, who shuffled along beside him, mumbling and snuffling and cackling to herself. Before the courtiers he pledged his troth to her, and not a sign did he give that she did not please him, then or throughout the feast that followed, during which the crone tore greedily at her food with long dirt-rimmed nails and swallowed with loud and liquid gulps. Apparently oblivious to this, Gawain spoke kindly to his wife throughout the meal, and he shared her meat-flecked goblet. She listened to him for the most part in silence, being occupied with eating. At last, she leaned back on the bench, her red face shining with grease. Looking along the table at the people of Arthur's court, she said thickly, "For your sake, Gawain, I would be a beautiful woman, for you have such good will." She gave a hoarse chuckle then and swayed where she sat. But Gawain, constant in courtesy, only smiled. He gave the crone his arm and led her past the courtiers out of the hall and into the bridal chamber. When they were alone there, she eyed her young husband suspiciously and said, "You must fulfill the bargain now. Bedding is the wife's right, and I ask it of you." "Indeed, lady, I am your true husband." He turned from her to unbuckle his sword. So I've got an image here. We'll take a little bit of a respite or reprieve just for a moment so I can show. And there's a picture here of Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. This is from actually an artist's representation of a different story. And I believe I have one of Dame Ragnall. So you can get an artist's representation of who Sir Gawain must bed. I find that to be very entertaining. And we'll have a little water and get back to the meat of it. I hope you enjoy the ambience. And feel free to leave comments. I'll try and do late night Ambient Glow Live presentations, because some of us are night owls. And it's just nice to have late night company. And these types of things, I believe, are the way of the future. If we're to really grasp hold of this technology and move culture forward, this medium is the perfect way to do it. For if you are in Canada or California or any place in the world, you can come here to my home in the evening and we'll share a story. So, I believe I left off where Sir Gawain had turned from her to unbuckle his sword. But when he turned back, the crone was gone. Beside the bed a woman stood, slender as a candle flame. A cloud of black hair curled around this maiden's sweet face, and her dark eyes sparkled at him. He dropped the sword and belt to the floor. "What are you?" he whispered. She replied with a laugh, "Your wife, surely, Gawain." While he stared, she continued, "I lie under an enchantment, and the choice of its terms is yours. I can be as you see me when we are alone, and a crone when anyone is by, or I can be beautiful in the eyes of the court, and a crone when I am here with you. Choose, then, husband." "Why, lady," said Gawain, "this is a sad choice. I must lose honor in the eyes of court, or pleasure in love." "So you must," replied Dame Ragnall. The young husband thought a moment, and then shook his head. "My dear, you must do as you wish. I give the choice to you, and gladly, with my heart." Dame Ragnall held out her arms to him and said, "Now you have answered the terms of the spell that chained me. My fate was to live as a crone until the greatest knight in Britain married me and gave me the sovereignty of choice. I am your true lady, Gawain, and this is the body I always shall wear." Then she put out the light. When morning came and sunlight filled the chamber, Gawain propped himself on his elbow and gazed at his wife until she opened her eyes and smiled at him. "The riddle that the son of summer made the king," he said, "what was it?" He asked what women most desire. And the answer? "Sovereignty over men," said Dame Ragnall with a laugh. Dame Ragnall lived with Gawain for 5 years and bore him his only son, Gawain, who grew to be a warrior as strong as his father. The woman's beauty never faded, but, as if the children of the elder races could not survive long among mortals, she died very young. Gawain mourned her all his life. Loyalty to his king and his own unswerving kindness delivered Gawain's lady from the spell that bound her. And tales of this kind were common once. As men and women slowly came to learn, they had strong defenses against the lingering spells and bindings of the elder age. Those defenses were the courage, strength, and love that lay within the human heart. So, that was our tale there. The Loathsome Lady, Dame Ragnall. I hope you enjoyed the piece. This has been a presentation of Ambient Glow Radio from the Pajama Scholar, Hank McGurk. Join me next time, and I bid you a good evening.